In this lesson, we'll cover setting up a standard switch with regular objects in 3D Studio Max. For this demonstration, I've position constrained this teapot to these two boxes. If I move one of the boxes around, you can see the teapot following it. What a switch will allow us to easily control is how much the teapot follows one box over the other. The attributes which control that are on the teapot. Under the Motions tab, with Position highlighted, we come down to the Position Constraint Weights. These values control how much the teapot follows each box. If I scroll one attribute up and down, we can see the teapot adjusting. The first step is to create a control object and add a switch attribute. I'll use a large point helper. To add the switch attribute, first we'll add the modifier attribute holder. This modifier is like a blank slate, where any attributes you add will stand out best. Second, under the Animation menu, select Parameter Editor. This tool allows us to add custom attributes. At the bottom, we can see what the attribute will look like. For a switch, we need a float, UI type, slider. We'll name it Switch. Now the float UI options are for your own preferences, but I like to use a width of 120, the default range, an alignment to the right, and 4 ticks. Now press Add, and we can see our custom attribute switch. Later we'll directly connect this attribute to one of the teapot's position constraint weights, but first we need to create some objects to function as the reverse of this attribute for us to connect to the other position constraint weight. We need 2 point helpers. I'll take down their size a little bit so they stand out. Make the second one across. That's our point helpers. And we also need an expose transform helper. First we'll link one point helper to the other. Since our switch attribute's maximum value is 100, we'll move the parent helper up 100 units to match it. I'll quickly zero out the position of the second helper. To do that, we'll go to Gimbal mode, and zero it out. And I'll move it up a little just to separate it from the first helper. Now we need to reverse the axis of the second helper so that up is down and down is up. To do that, we have to rotate the first helper upside down 180 degrees. Let's enter 180, and it's upside down. Now we need to wire the switch attribute into the Z position of the second helper. Select the control object, right-click, go to Wire Parameters, select the switch attribute, left-click the second helper, find Position Z, select the direction of our connection, and hit Connect. Now whenever we move the switch attribute, this helper moves to the reverse of our custom attribute's value. 0 to 100, 10 to 90, 25 to 75, 50 to 50, etc., etc. Now we need to use the Expose Transform helper to expose the world position of the second helper. Select the Expose Transform helper, and under the Modify tab, highlight Expose Node, and left-click the helper. Now for the final step, we'll wire our switch attribute and the reverse value that we're getting from these objects into the position constraint weights of the teapot. Select our control object, right-click, go to Wire Parameters, select the custom attribute switch, left-click the teapot, select Position Weight 0, select the direction of our connection, and hit Connect. Now to connect the reverse, select the Expose Transform helper, right-click, go to Wire Parameters, go to Object Expose Transform helper, and select World Position Z. Left-click the teapot, go to Position Weight 1, then select the direction of our connection, and hit Connect. We're done! Now we can manipulate the switch attribute to control which box the teapot follows. This concludes the lesson on standard switches with regular objects in 3D Studio Max.